Hey guys, just got done watching A Haunted House from 2013, and it was directed by Michael Tides, and it was written by Marlon Wayans and Rick Alvarez, and it starred Marlon Wayans, Marlene Fault, Essence Atkins, David Kushner, who's in a hell of a lot of films, Dave Sheridan, Nick Swanson, Alana Eubank, Andrew Daly, Cedric the Entertainer, and Affian Crockett. Now, this film going in, I'd heard nothing but negative things about it. There were the odd good reviews, and basically there were people who really liked silly humour and over-the-top humour. And going into it, I expected to sound like Scary Movie, and to be honest, it was like Scary Movie, but it was a very bad kind of Scary Movie. It reminded me of Scary Movie 5 in the fact that it was okay, but it wasn't great. And all I kept thinking was if this film had come out in the 90s, it would have been a lot better received because it's got a lot of, I don't know how you put it. Back in the 90s, you had a lot of, as they call them, black comedies, where it was basically full of just black people in the comedies. And I hope that doesn't sound racist because I don't know what else to call them. The comedies, that it's not the people, right? And this was kind of the same thing. It had the whole humour that's like, they would say black humour back then in the 90s. I really hope this doesn't make me sound racist because I'm not trying to be. I swear to you, I'm not. And this is what it reminded me of because there was so much in this that reminded me of the 90s. Like the comedy aspects, like Marlon Wayans, he was big in Scary Movie when it first came out, which was in 2000. But it was in the Wayans Brothers show and so forth. But we were at the point then where it was kind of like we're still in that phase, and now we've kind of gone out that phase where it's funny hearing the N word from somebody. You don't want to hear that anymore because you get all this racist stuff going on. But even in a comedy, it's not funny for people. So I think it's aimed for people who understand that comedy more. But anyway, so the story goes, Malcolm and Keisha are finally moving in together and he's madly in love with her, and as she's driving up the road, he's like, yay, hey, because she's coming, and his dog Shiloh runs and gets run over by her. Well, he gets upset. He tries to resuscitate it, tries to use jump leads to bring it back to life, and he runs down the road going, meet me at the vets, like the hospital, and basically finds he's running the wrong way, so he runs back, which is funny a little bit, but it kind of tells you where the film's going. So anyway, later on she goes, I'm gonna dress in something more comfortable, and he's like, ooh. So he starts giving like a tutorial on sex with a bear and a dog and a duck. And it's actually quite funny because it's about him seducing the bear and stuff. And he does humping noises, he goes and all that, you know. And it's all right, and it's a bit over the top, but it is quite funny to start off with. Well, she comes out and she's got basically a face pack bits on her face, and he's like, ugh. So then he basically makes her act like a homeless person begging for money, and that was actually quite funny, that scene. I was laughing at that. I did think it was really funny how it was like, I'll do anything for money and all that. But then you start getting these paranormal activities because this film is basically a parody of all these different films which are listed, which are, let me get down my list, basically The Haunting, The Exorcist, The Entity, Ghostbusters, Witchboard, The Blair Witch Project, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. There's some to do with Wreck. Paranormal Activity is obvious because it's that. Quarantine because that's got to do with Wreck. The Haunting of Molly Hartley, The Haunting in Connecticut, The Last Exorcism, Insidious, The Rite, The Devil Inside, Sinister and the Possession. So there's a lot of films being basically parodied in this film. And because of that, the film's all over the place. So then basically they hire Dan the security man, and his brother Bob to fit in some cameras. And basically Dan's basically a bit on the racist side in the fact that he goes, come on, let me say the N-word, and I bet you're going to come out here and cook turkey and cornbread and all this other stuff. And it's kind of like that humour that in a way is past now. And he's and there's a bit where it gets him to go like this and all that, and you're just like, okay. And it is funny, but at the same time you feel like today's world is past that. Because of all the stuff we've got to do to be careful in this world of how we offend people, we feel like we've moved past this to a big degree, if you know what I mean. So he sets the camera and then he basically asks him for the password, says you can point anywhere, and he doesn't give it to him. And Malcolm doesn't give it to Dan the security man because he knows that he wants to watch him and Keisha having sex. So basically, then the next scene is you see him setting up a camera on the broken fan, which I'm sure is from number 3. Paranormal Activity 3 that's used from. And so when they leave, you basically see Rosa in this stupid comedy thing. She's brushing stuff under the floor. She's calling people. She's basically got women there naked, making drugs. And she's having sex with the gardener. Nothing special. You then basically meet the friend Jenny and Steve. And basically they're swingers. And Steve constantly goes to Malcolm about, have you ever thought about trading in your car and giving another car a good servicing and all this other stuff? And they're really weird, and she's all over him because apparently she likes black guys. And then later on she basically has a thing called, I think they call them Maha or something. I could be wrong on that. But where she basically has sex with all these black guys on her birthday. So anyway, they basically leave, and then you basically get all this paranormal stuff going on, and there's a bit where Keisha has sex with the ghost, and she thinks it's Malcolm, and Malcolm gets raped from behind by the ghost, and then you get this psychic turn up who's gay, and he keeps saying to Malcolm stuff like this. Do you like pizza? Yes. Do you like Coke? Yes. Do you like watching football? Yes. Do you like men? No. And he keeps doing it over and over again until Malcolm starts saying yes. And he's like, no. And he's very like up to him. He goes on about how she's got herpes and all this stuff, but it's just really silly. And then Keisha says to Malcolm like, oh yeah, I didn't tell you about the herpes, and then you see him in the shower scrubbing himself. And to be honest with you, the film lacks original jokes. The jokes don't feel genuine. They feel really rubbish. And they don't feel any good. Like there's a scene where, again, Jenny and Steve come over and they use a witch board, which is a Ouija board, but they kind of reference the witch board, the film. And what happens is something happens like something paranormal, and they run out the building basically. So it's just not funny. It just lacks anything. But really, the first half an hour I found to be okay, and then it slowly got worse and worse and worse. There's a great bit with Cedric the Entertainer where he turns up as Father Williams, and Keisha is in the Devil Inside mode, where the woman, when the woman at the beginning sees her daughter and she's like this, and she goes, and all that. Well, she goes, what is it she says? Oh, that's it, connect the scars or something, connect the crosses. And Cedric pulls his knife, goes, tic-tac-toe, motherfucker. It's just really funny, that bit, because he goes, yeah, I tic-toed it, and all this. And then he shows a big, massive tattoo on his bum of a butterfly. And that's her basically the Devil Inside Me thing, where she's possessed, and then they showed basically the last exorcism, where she's having sex with the cross, and where where she's running about and hiding, and they chase after her looking for her. And it's just nothing, there's nothing original here. It's basically what this has shown me is that parodies just are not what they used to be. Back in the days of the 80s and 90s, they were still quite fresh, and they were quite cool. Now we've got to the point where everything's a parody of itself. Like Paranormal Activity parodies itself every movie it makes because they're almost the same movie. And comedies are not what they used to be, in the fact that a parody used to be fantastic, like Scary Movie, like Shriek If I Know What You Did Last Summer, and stuff like that. And now, other than those ones which are classics, you sit there and you're like, this is just boring, because there's no original stuff. Most of the stuff in there is rehashed from the Scary Movie movies, not because they're the same jokes, but they're the same kind of jokes. The stuff you'd got away with in the 90s and early 2000s. Now it's like we want a little bit of intelligence. But sadly, the audience that watches these movies now, in most cases, isn't as just doesn't seem to understand the concept. You know, I don't think seeing somebody get raped by a ghost is funny. I don't see smoking weed with a ghost as funny because it's been used before. The weed smoking scene was used in Scary Movie, except with the killer instead of a ghost, which kind of was the same thing, but they just changed it. And it just, I don't know, it just wasn't funny. Like I said, the first 20, 30 minutes was quite funny. I enjoyed it, but then if I watched it back, I won't find it funny again. So in the end, you've got Bob, you've got Dan, you've got Chip, and you've got Father Williams and Malcolm looking for Keisha. And they go down into the basement, and you get all these innuendo jokes. Like there's a bit where it goes to night vision mode, and you've got Chip moving around naked, looking for Malcolm because he wants to touch him up and all this. And I'm just like, this just isn't funny because there's too many sexual jokes in this movie, and 98% of them just fall absolutely flat on the ground. There's nothing to it. Like it's like they don't even build up the jokes; they just throw them out like boom, 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 like someone throwing $20 notes at you. Boom, 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 boom. Take that, take that, take that, without doing anything to warrant why they're doing it. And that's what it felt like. So then right at the very end, the screen goes all funny, and then you see Malcolm in bed, and you see him talking to Keisha, and Keisha gets taken, and you see Malcolm get on the floor and go, ah ha ha, you thought you could take me too. And he gets dragged away, and the door slams, and that's the end of the movie. And I just thought the movie overall was lazy, not really well done, and I was gobsmacked when I found out there was a second one coming out, and it's already out now, but at the time when I found out, I was gobsmacked. I just can't believe it. So I'm going to have to watch the second one now, and I bet that's even worse. But I honestly think that like things like Scary Movie and that are a thing of their time, and they're stuck in the past. And movies like this are stuck in the past and shouldn't carry on going, if you ask me, because we're in a new decade now. We're in a new kind of era where parodies are a thing of the past, and they don't really work as well, you know. So anyway, as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this movie or you don't, let me know down below. Let me know what you thought of the movie. If you did like the video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. And I hope you have a lovely day, guys. Thanks for watching and take care.